Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing a top war defense video, part 1, because I'm going a little bit overboard and I don't want the video to be too long. So in this, I'm going to break down the numbers 10 through 6 war defense teams. Might be a little surprising, but maybe not. We're going to talk about positioning, we're going to talk about ISOs, T4s, we're going to talk about counters briefly, and we'll maybe talk about some hybrids you can throw in along the way. But without further ado, let's jump into it. So yes guys, coming in at number 10 is the Astonishing X-Men. There's a couple reasons you're going to want these guys on your defensive squad. Primary reason is because they're a raid team, so you're going to have them built super high. Whoops. So you're going to have them built super high. Let's start that shit over. Yeah guys, coming in at number 10 we have the Astonishing X-Men. There's a couple reasons we're going to want these guys on war defense, and I'll break that down right now. So, they're a raid team, obviously. We're going to have them built very high, but their uses on war offense are very limited. In fact, they're best against mostly summoning teams. And we don't see many summoning teams on war defense for the simple fact that Astonishing X-Men and Symbiotes will really blow them up. So, that's kind of something we're trying to avoid, having useless offense teams. This makes them a very good candidate for war defense. Positioning wise, I like Bishop in the corner next to Kitty, who's going to be stealthed, followed by Iceman, Beast, and then Jubilee. The three on the right side, you can kind of intertwine it the way you'd like. I kind of like sticking the Jubilee off into the corner, but if you wanted to separate Beast and Jubilee by moving Iceman over, that would make sense too. So for Bishop, I want everything T4'd on him. He's the lifeblood of this team. He needs to get kills to push Jubilee's passive so that your Axeman team snowballs and beats the enemy team quickly. So I want everything T4'd for him. It's all raw damage. It's all very important. And for him, again, because we need him to kill somebody, I want him as a striker. Next, we have Kitty. She doesn't need any T4s. And I will take a break right now and just say the T4 recommendations I'm giving for these lists is solely for war defense. This does not apply to raids. Kitty's passive is awesome in raids. It's useless in war defense. So please make that distinction. She doesn't need any T4s. I want her as a skirmisher. I really want her to land that ultimate and the special. And most importantly, I want her to put vulnerables out when she gets called in from an assist from either Jubilee or Bishop. So we're gonna her as a skirmisher. Iceman, very similar to Kitty Pryde, though his passive is pretty good. It reduces the enemy's armor by 10%, I believe, with that T4, which is going to help your Bishop do what he needs to do. Then we want him to land all his slows and his stuns, and we want more vulnerables out there, hence another skirmisher. Beast, we really just need that special T4. It's going to make the heal a little bit better by cleansing 2 negative effects from the Astonishing X-Men. And because we really rely on him, bringing the X-Men from the brink of death to snowballing, I want him as a healer. I actually use him as a skirmisher in the raids, but on war defense, healer is clearly the better choice. Bouncing from death to full life is such a problem. I'm sure if you guys have faced this team and it's gone the wrong way for you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Lastly, we have Jubilee. She's kind of the yin and the yang of the team to Bishop. She's very important kit-wise, and she does a pretty good damage as well. But we want everything T4'd. Everything is very important for her and very kit-based on her T4s. And we're going to want her as a striker. The reason we like striker is because if she goes to stun somebody and misses, she can probably come in with a follow-up tap, assuming that that character has a vulnerable on them, and then she has a 70% chance of putting blind out there. That's obviously very powerful. I really like that interaction with striker, not to mention the damage helps too. So as far as counters go, Shadowlands demolishes your Astonishing X-Men, but pulling a Shadowlands is kind of a win in of itself. When I say demolishes, I'm talking about 300k punch-ups. Next, the full Ravager team. Not my Ravager Hawkeye team, but the full Ravagers with Bruiser. Kind of awkward, right? I talked about how this team thrives against summoning teams, but I'm saying Yondu works against them, and he absolutely does. Just the way T'Challa rips through the Bishop on the opening attack, it makes them win. But you need the full team. You really need that Bruiser with that defense up. That's about 200k punch-up. And the beauty behind that is not everybody has Ravagers built up. So maybe I'll be able to take your Astonishing X-Men out with my Ravagers, but it's kind of a niche pick. For soft counters, we have the new warriors. That would be your Cloak and Dagger, probably with Death Pool, and then there's 2 flex picks. You could probably have a Shuri, an OG Falcon in there, or maybe a Silver Surfer, or Emma, or somebody like that filling those roles. That works, but it relies on one very important thing: pushing an Astonishing X-Men into yellow health. If that happens, Beast uses his ultimate instead of his special, so he doesn't cleanse the Cloak debuffs, which is obviously very important. Not to mention, if you get disrupts from the Cloak ultimate, then Beast's ultimate does nothing, which is cool. Another soft counter is the Secret Avengers with Kestrel. This is a better counter than the New Warriors team will be. You don't summon with Fury, obviously. You open up a special like you would everywhere else. And same with Maria, you'd probably just use basic. The idea here is you need to have enough oomph to kind of nuke the Bishop out the gate. Again, this one's a little bit trickier because even if you knock the Bishop below 50% life, Beast's ultimate will give everybody buffs and will make them go before Captain Sam, which could cause a problem, but I've actually never had an issue using this counter. But yeah, guys, that's number 10, the Astonishing X-Men. Coming in at number 9, we got the Web Warriors. A lot of the same reasons for our Astonishing X-Men, though they do outrank the Astonishing X-Men in terms of the amount of wins you can expect to get from them. So, they're a raid team, you're going to have them built up for that. Maybe you're like me, and you built them up huge for Scourge, so they're going to make use on word defense. They're not a great offense team, they struggle on offense. The reason they are better on defense is because of that AI dodge chance. Again, if you experience a Scourge event like I did, you know just how strong those dodges can be, or not be if you're trying to get them yourself. So, we like them on defense. They require a lot of teams that we kind of want to pull off of our enemy. Teams like Secret Avenger Kestrel, Uncanny, Black Order, teams like that. So they pull really strong teams because of how big you're going to have them. Let's start left to right, and this is the positioning we want them in as well. So for Scarlet Spider, really just that ultimate and the passive. I forget what the passive does, I believe it's some sort of damage. But that ultimate is just raw damage. And the idea here is that if Scarlet Spider reaches his ultimate, it's almost surely going to kill one of the enemies, assuming he doesn't have offense down. So I really, really like his damage. I really rely on that ultimate in causing havoc if he reaches it. I like him as a raider in both war and in raid, so I think that's an easy suggestion. Next we have Spider-Man. We really only need that passive on Spider-Man. I know the special is nice in raids because it rebounds more, but because we're not in control of him, I don't think we need to hope for the 4 or 5 rebounds. So that passive, when it happens, when you get a dodge, you get, I believe it's 100 speed bar, and on any of your Web Warriors, whoever gets the dodge gets the speed bar, which is very, very important, and that works in tandem with Spider-Punk's passive, which we'll get to in a second. So yeah, we just want the passive on Spider-Man. I really like him as a skirmisher in war defense. I have him as a raider on raids, but on war defense, it's really valuable because of how slow Spider-Man is compared to the rest of his team. He goes almost last, depending on if he gets a dodge or not, right? But he's going to go last, and so he's going to be hitting into these vulnerables, and what that's going to do is peel off buffs, which is going to be very, very good. And that's why we have everyone else as a raider, so he's got vulnerables to pick from. So for Spider-Punk, really just the passive as well. I believe the passive is for him maybe just dodge, but because it's good for raids, I decided to include it here as well. Now his passive, what it does is when a Web Warrior dodges, they gain offense up. Partner that with Spider-Man giving them speed bar, and it is a recipe for disaster for your enemy team. So I really like that. I would say there is a hybrid option where you put in Symbiote Spider-Man over Spider-Punk, but after experiencing the power of that offense up in the Scourge mode, I strongly recommend against it. Just that offense up chance can really turn the tides of battle. I'm going to use him as a raider for war defense, not because he's super strong, but mostly just because, well, I don't want to re-ISO him for no reason. Next we have Miles. You really want that ultimate T4. You really want to put extra disrupts out there. It's going to affect a lot of the counters we're going to be talking about. Then we want his passive. I believe his passive is just more dodge chance, but again, it's good for raid. It's very strong. And we're going to use him as a raider. For what we discussed with Spider-Man, we just want a lot of vulnerables out there. He does AoE attack on his open ability. That's great. Then we have Ghost Spider. Her and Scarlet Spider really carry the team. So, we really need that passive. That retaliation damage is huge and could make or break your defensive team. Then the ultimate is kind of a luxury, but I decided to include it because, like Scarlet Spider, if she's reaching her ultimate, there's a good chance it's going to wipe the board. So I like having the extra damage put on there and making sure it spreads all the debuffs. And we want her as a raider, makes her pings hit really hard. As far as counters go, Secret Avengers Kestrel wipes the floor with Web Warriors. A lot of these counters come down to unavoidable attacks. And that's what Kestrel's special is, unavoidable, unblockable, so it's going to land those defense downs, which really rips through the Web Warriors. Next, we have the Uncanny X-Men with Magic. Again, Storm's special is unavoidable, though it can be blocked. However, when Storm uses her special, depending who gets stunned, it could be an instant loss for Web Warriors. With both of these teams, I've done up to 350k punch-ups pretty safely. Although, with Uncanny, I have experienced enough dodges from Web Warriors where I've almost lost a punch across, so it's a very interesting matchup. Then we have some soft counters. The Z Factor with Zemo and X Factor. It's really strong. Also, you can use Hawkeye in place of Zemo because Hawkeye's special, like Kestrel's, is unavoidable, and it does a turn meter rewind, so it'll get you ahead of the game. But for that team, basically, you're going to do either your Zemo ultimate and hope for some crits and some slows, or your Hawkeye special, and then just you're going to pick who gets rewound and cleansed or debuffed. And then you're going to open up with Shatterstar special. That's going to put offense or defense down on people, and then Longshot comes in with his basic, which is unavoidable, and your goal is to kill somebody off the gate. This doesn't allow for the type of punch-ups that Secret Avengers or Uncanny does, but it works in a pinch. Similarly, with Black Order, it's an okay soft counter. With Proxima and Corvus's basics, I believe, being unavoidable, you can rip through somebody very quickly. Ebony Maw's special is crucial in this because what it does is gives you defense up, puts offense down on the people that don't dodge, and you kind of sustain your way until Proxima and Corvus kill somebody. Not to mention Thanos, you know, if he's not getting dodged left, right, and center, he can really mess them up as well. I have seen this matchup lose on a punch across and on slight punch downs. I've also seen it work on punch ups. That's kind of the nature of the Web Warriors defense. It's very RNG dependent. But yeah, guys, that's Web Warriors coming in at number 9. Alright, coming in at number 8, we have Skilletary. What? Skilletary's a war offense team, I know. But they catch people on defense in a big way, especially if you have a big Skilletary team. The counters are very limited, and the counters that you're needed to beat a Skilletary team pull away from your other meta war defense teams. And war defense is all about limiting the options and trying to pull 2 or 3 defensive wins from your room. If you can pull 2 or 3, you've contributed in a gigantic way to the success of your alliance. So this is the way I like my positioning. I like Red Guardian beside Black Widow so that he gets isolated with that stealth, then Punisher, Yelena, and Merc Soldier. So for Red Guardian, I really like that special. It helps clear more, I believe, and then the passive is very strong. I forget exactly what it does. It might be health for Skilletary and speed up on spawn, but it's very crucial. I like him as a healer inside of war defense. I kind of like him as a fortifier everywhere else. So make the choice there. I don't think that's a make or break ISO for him. Then we have Black Widow. We really want that special done. It does do a cleanse to Skilletary, so it's very important. It's also her opening ability. So if you're attacking in a room like security, it's going to take that defense up, or the defense down, away from you right away, which is very nice. We also want that passive done. Again, I forget what the passive... Oh, guaranteed assist chance for Yelena and Red Guardian enemies. And we really like her as a skirmisher, getting vulnerables out there and peeling off buffs. So yeah, that's for Black Widow. Then for Punisher, you really just need the special and the ultimate T4. Mostly the ultimate. The special is very nice though. The ultimate makes it do a 3-tap, which is super strong. He needs striker for the 3-tap, but it devastates enemy teams. So if you go in there with your Black Order, you could find yourself with no Corvus and no Proxima right away, which really messes with you. Especially if then they get defense up before your Thanos ults, you're in big trouble. Next, we have Yelena. We want everything with the basic done on Yelena. To be honest, I forget what everything does, but I know it's very important. I believe this is Disrupt for 2 turns. The ultimate, I believe, is just damage, but similar to the Web Warrior team that we just talked about, it's big damage. So it's kind of like the game ender. And then the passive, I forget what the passive does, but again, it's very strong. We want her as a raider. She's going to set the stage with lots of vulnerables and weaken people for Punisher to come in and just take them out. Next, we have Merc Soldier. We want his special done. It's going to clear buffs, and we want his passive done for sure. You need to have the passive done. It increases damage of military units by a huge margin. And we're going to want him as a skirmisher, again, helping set the stage for Punisher. A note here is that it's very likely you're pulling one of these characters off for the new A4s team. They have the military tag. It's going to be really strong with Captain Marvel. Probably going to end up being this Merc Soldier to give the extra damage to Captain Marvel for her to delete people, at which time there's a lot of great options to throw in here for hybrid. You have Doom. You have Surfer. There's a lot of great options. If you don't have the Ravager team built up, T'Challa is great here. Yeah, there's just a lot of great options for this team. I think they're gonna stand the test of time for war defense longer than a team like Web Warriors or Astonishing X-Men. As far as counters go, Secret Avengers and Shadowlands wipe the floor with this team, but pulling either of those teams is a win with this. Next, you have Black Order. We talked about that. With a big enough Punisher, you can lose your Corvus and your Proxima right away, but otherwise, it's pretty easy to get around the Red Guardian and kill the damage dealers of this team. And then you have Z-Factor. Z-Factor could probably be considered a hard counter. They're more heroes than they are villains, right? Like, Zemo's a villain, but X-Factor is pretty much all heroes. So they're not too worried about that extra Punisher damage, and they can kind of just run the gambit on them. They get some defense down, they get some speed going, and they just roll over them. But yeah, guys, that's number 8, Skill Military.
Fine. I'll do it myself.
Alright guys, coming in at number 7 is the Black Order, the old arena meta defining team where we started getting all these cookie cutter teams. So, lots of older players are going to have this team very well built, and the thing is, they've kind of been knocked out of the offensive meta. They struggle with a lot of teams. I showed them being a good counter to some teams. They can kind of beat mercenary teams with certain variants. We're going to talk about mercenaries here in a second. They can kind of beat skilletary. They can kind of beat Web Warriors. And they're really kind of good right now for a sacrificial team attack against Dormammu teams. But I don't think that's going to be permanent, and I do believe their best value is on defense. So this is the position I like my Black Order in. I like Ebony Maw, followed by Proxima, Thanos, Corvus with that stealth, hiding Cull in the corner. We've seen that a lot, right? We've seen a lot of stealth people hiding our guys. Actually, we've seen that in every single team so far, haven't we? Interesting. Anyway, you might have a lot more T4s invested in this team already if you played during the arena meta. But for war defense, it's a little bit less. So, for Ebony Maw, we want that special, the ultimate, and the passive. They're all very kit defining, and we want him as a skirmisher. For Proxima, again, everything but the basic, and we want her as a skirmisher as well. That's kind of setting the stage for our strikers. Thanos, we want everything T4'd. It's all very strong, very kit defining, and we want him as a striker. Argument can be made for Raider, but I've really found striker to cause havoc. Then we have Corvus. We really just want that passive done, but if you wanted a luxury one, go ahead and throw that ultimate on. It is his first attack. We want him as a striker. Finally, Cull. We want that ultimate done. It's kind of the send-off. It's going to absolutely nuke somebody if he reaches that with not offense down kind of deal and maybe some death-proof stacks. And then we want that passive. And for him, we want him as a striker. He's not going to eat up as many of these vulnerables as you might think. The Striker is just for his retaliation damage. As far as counters go, there's so many teams that counter this team, and they all revolve around Doc Ock. So, you have your Doc Ock Secret Avengers, you have your Doc Ock X-Factor, you have your Doc Ock Web Warriors, Doc Ock Symbiotes, Doc Ock Astonishing X-Men. But we've seen a lot of those teams fall out of the war offense meta and find themselves on defense. Symbiotes, Astonishing X-Men, to name a few. Secret Avengers, if you're pulling a Secret Avenger with your Black Order, you're doing a good job. If you're pulling X-Factor with your Black Order, that's a good job. That's clearing the way for your other teams to, gives them more breathing room. Makes them more likely to pull a win if your Black Order is pulling a team like that. Then there are some soft counters. I didn't include it, but Shadowlands is another soft counter. I would never use Shadowlands against Black Order because they have such better use elsewhere. Then you have Uncanny. Uncanny is a very strong team. I've done 200k punch-ups and I've lost punch-acrosses. It seems very volatile with who gets stunned and when Phoenix decides she wants to die. So at higher levels of Black Order, if she dies too quickly and you can't get a cleanse on Ebony Maw to get that immunity off him so you don't land the stun on him, or you can't kill him through his death proof with Storm's ultimate, it can cause problems. It is a soft counter though, so I wanted to include it. But yeah, obviously no hybrid options for the Black Order guys. There's a Black Order. It's not a thing. Alright guys, and last but certainly not least is we have our first hybrid team, the Surfer Mercs team. There's a couple different versions of this team that I'll talk about, different options to place in that can both help and hurt you. And we'll talk a little bit about how that is. But first, let's look at positioning. So we got Silver Surfer on the far end, Korath, Taskmaster beside Riot Guard, and finally Merc Lieutenant. So, as far as T4s go for Silver Surfer, we want absolutely everything T4'd. It's all kit defining, very, very powerful T4s for him, and we want him as a striker. He's going to be what makes or breaks this team, so you want him to be very big. In fact, a very big Silver Surfer with small mercs will get people to underestimate the team and could cause them a quick loss. Next, we want Korath. Because of his ultimate opening, he's very, very quick. He can get a vulnerable out there, which is why we want him as a skirmisher, but he can also get an ability block, 50% chance to land that ability block. That'll really, really mess with some of the counters should it land. So that's why we're taking him over Killmonger, even though Killmonger has the best skin in the game. Then we have Taskmaster. We really want that ultimate T4, the more blinds we get up, the better. And we want that passive T4. I almost forget what it does. I believe it makes his assist 100%. And that's going to kind of be why we want him as a skirmisher. Not only do we want those blinds to land, but we want him to peel off any kind of taunts or defense ups in preparation for Silver Surfer to nuke somebody. Then we have Riot Guard. Riot Guard, I kind of struggle with the Iso8 choice. I go Fortifier. He doesn't need the defense up, but the barrier can maybe keep him alive, which is kind of cool. We want him to have that special T4 because it gives him 3 turns of defense up. And we want that passive T4 to make sure that he's always giving out deflex. Then we have Merc Lieutenant. Merc Lieutenant is going to surprise you guys with the amount of healing he does. We really want that special T4. It's actually mandatory to have that special T4 because that's what gives speed up to everybody on the team. Everybody. It's very important he has that for Silver Surfer. And then the passive as well. I almost forget what the passive does. I believe it increases his heal. And we're going to use him as a healer. So the reason this team catches people off guard is because if you have that Merc Lieutenant specialty forward, no matter what the enemy does, unless they can put a blind out or disrupt on Silver Surfer, he is going to be using his ultimate with offense up. So you slap this team into a security room or security adjacent room, and you have a Silver Surfer with offense up using his ultimate into defense down and just crushing people. A lot of the counters that you're going to see below kind of fall apart with a big enough Silver Surfer if they're not able to control him quickly enough. A lot of people end up just using Infinity Watch on this team. I didn't include Infinity Watch because they're kind of the Master Key team, and I don't want to be cheap and just say Infinity Watch. There are other options, but many people will just say, no, we're in security, use Infinity Watch on this Surfer Mercs team. It's also very important that you have 4 mercs on this team. 4 mercs makes them go before Shadowlands. If you had 3 mercs, somebody can use Shadowlands on this team and completely destroy this team before Silver Surfer gets a turn. So, there are other versions of this team without Silver Surfer. There's a Doom version of this team, not quite as potent because it's not that devastating Surfer ultimate with offense up, but it does work and it catches people off guard, especially if you have a smaller mercs. They might use Secret Avengers on it, thinking Secret Avengers is going to beat Doom, and then they make the mistake of using Kestrel's special, and they kill 3 mercs right away, and then they have no choice but to hit Doom. He pushes into his ultimate, and all of a sudden, Doom destroys the team. So there's a couple different options there. In our most recent war, we also saw 3 mercs with Surfer and Shang-Chi. I do not suggest doing that. I lost to it because I was kind of goofing off. But I don't suggest doing that because Heroes for Hire still pulls very important teams, and without the full 5, you're not going to get that pull. But I digress. Let's talk about some counters. Zemo does not indicate Z factor here. Let me move over a little bit. Zemo here indicates Hydra 3. That's Zemo with Red Skull, possibly Loki, Hela, definitely Grenadier, maybe not Riot Guard, but Hydra Guard, characters like that. Obviously, with the minions, Zemo really shines, and he actually has that immunity, so Taskmaster's not going to get a blind on him. He also then puts out Disrupt on Riot Guard, and then if there's no deflex on the Surfer and you didn't bring people like Hela or Loki, he's pretty susceptible to the ability block. He's still going to give ability block, but he's not going to use that offense up. And then you can kind of just take your time and rip the team apart. Obviously, with this matchup, you need your Hydra Grenadier to be the highest damage to pull the ire of Taskmaster. He's going to kill your Grenadier, and Red Skull just keeps bringing him back over and over and over again. It's a hard counter, but similar to T'Challa with the Astonishing X-Men team, not a lot of people have this Hydra team built up, but it certainly is the best counter to Surfer mercs. Then we have the Uncanny Magic team. This one works very well. There is a slight moment of RNG panic if somehow your Phoenix gets ability blocked or slowed, and Storm gets the ability block, and you don't get to use that special out the gate, or if you're doing this attack into security, and the Surfer is strong enough that he kills a bunch of your Astonishing X-Men, your Uncanny X-Men, even though they spawn with defense up. But it is probably my best counter to the Surfer mercs team that's not Infinity Watch. Then you have some soft counters. X-Force is such a fun team. And they work so well here because of the small health pools on characters like Korath and Merc Lieutenant. But if there's defense up involved from engineering or deflex or what have you, it really falls apart. And even if it's small mercs, if it's a giant Surfer and your X-Force aren't up to the task to 5v1 him, you can absolutely lose that matchup with the insane healing Surfer does on his passive. I've seen this matchup work in the 900 v 900k range very, very well, which is why I'm including it. I personally cannot recommend building up X-Force at the moment, though they were my favorite team at a point. Then we have the Secret Avengers with Kestrel. This team can be pretty rough. So this is actually the team I used and lost with that Shang-Chi version, because Merc Lieutenant, I believe, goes before Fury, which is kind of crazy. And then he gives speed up to Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi killed me. If there's no Shang-Chi though, Surfer does use his ultimate, which gives a little bit of RNG, but Captain Sam, if he doesn't get the ability block, and he's kind of unlikely to with his resist and the deflex he spawns with and everything else, well, he can just use his special and give energy to probably Sharon, who can cleanse it, or he can give speed up, and you can just roll over people with Kestrel pings all along the way. So it's a very good counter. I would say with Secret Avengers Kestrel, you're looking at probably about 100k punch up pretty easily. But you guys, that's number 6, and that's going to end this video. Alright guys, and that's going to do it for this half of the war or top war defense team video. I'm hopeful to get the top 5 out hopefully by the weekend. These videos take a little bit of this take a long time. You got to give it up to folks like Valleyfly and Phil and Mobile when they get these videos out so quick. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, and have fun, and I'll see you guys in the next one.